Chapter 61. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yang Ling stepped forward, shielding Lu Muhan. So, you're saying that if she doesn't agree to Lu Dong's terms, you're going to tear up the deal right here? He asked. You're all about Lu Dong, but your buddies here just want the cash. This was definitely a hidden agenda. The other robbers looked at their leader, the one in the monkey mask. One of them blurted out, "Dude, the stock is the important thing here." That the monkey-masked man glanced at his crew and then glared at Yang Ling. Fine, fine, he spat. We'll deal with you later, after the ink is dry. He barked, bring it over, *ding. You just wrecked the bandit leader's plan to strong-arm Lu Muhan. Attribute point +1, Yang Ling couldn't help but smirk. Things were tense, so he pumped a point into his strength. Now he was up to 16. Soon, Lu Muhan was at a makeshift table, staring at the contract. Her hands trembled. 100,000 shares was practically $100 million. Money was one thing, but she was terrified of the masked man sitting across from her. His greedy eyes were glued to her. She was afraid that after she signed, he'd kill the others and then. Come on, Lu Dong, sign the contract and save your mom. Lu Muhan struggled to keep her cool. She looked at her grandfather for support. Mr. Lu sighed and gave a tiny nod. Taking a deep breath, Lu Muhan steeled herself to sign. Everyone watched, their eyes locked on her. The monkey-masked man's eyes shone with predatory glee, but then, a large hand reached out and covered hers. Everyone was stunned as Yang Ling snatched the contract and ripped it in half. Inside was a hidden layer of paper. A stock transfer agreement. Lu Muhan cried. It was a document that would transfer all of her shares. Yang Ling looked at the monkey-masked man and chuckled. This is synthetic paper, made with the same tech they use to fake money, he said. You were going to quietly swallow Muhua Group whole. That's quite an appetite. Isn't that right, President Wang? A collective gasp went through the room. The monkey-masked man stumbled back, staring at Yang Ling in disbelief. *ding. You just wrecked the bandit leader's plan to deceive Lu Muhan. Attribute point +1, Yang Ling continued smoothly. I started getting suspicious when you didn't want to get in the van. Then you vanished, taking the shortcut by helicopter. The man yelled. That's a lie. I'll shoot you. You'd shoot me anyway, right? Yang Ling said dryly. You sabotaged our van, hoping we'd die in an accident. Then, you'd kill your wife. With Muhua leaderless, you'd be able to control everything, correct? This contract was just your backup plan, wasn't it? In fact, you'd already decided to kill us the moment we arrived, right? The monkey-masked man had recovered his composure. And how can you be sure I'm Wang Chao? He sneered. Chapter 62. Have you finished talking nonsense? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hang on a sec. How can you be so sure? Yang Ling smiled. Mr. Wang, you changed your clothes, pants, shoes, and even put on a mask, but you forgot about your socks. I might not be good at much, but I never forget a face, or a pair of socks. Everyone was stunned and looked down. The masked man was wearing plaid socks, a limited edition from some high-end brand. There probably wasn't another pair in this whole town. Hearing this, the man ripped off his mask, revealing Wang Chao. Ding! You've crushed Wang Chao's pathetic attempt to impersonate the gang leader. Attribute point +1. 0.2 more attribute points. Yang Ling pumped up his strength again, bringing it to a crazy 18 points. Now unmasked, Wang Chao glared at Lu Muhan, practically spitting with rage. Why? Why won't you even look at me? What did I do wrong? Why did you marry this guy, Yang Ling? Tell me. Why can't you just accept me? Lu Muhan, finally calm, sneered at Wang Chao. You were secretly embezzling from the company and keeping a mistress on the side. Did you really think I didn't know? You knew? Wang Chao laughed. So what? What's wrong with a successful man having a little something on the side? Successful. Lu Muhan acted as if she knew she was doomed, but still taunted Wang Chao. You call that success? Honestly, you barely deserve to be a supervisor. And you know how you got that position, right? Wang Chao's face twisted with rage. Fine, let me show you what I can do. He turned to Mr. Lu, screaming, Old man, our family sacrificed everything for you. My father took a bullet for you. And what did I get in return? You know I'm in love with Muhan, so why did you let her marry an outsider? Mr. Lu snorted. I saw right through you. If it weren't for your father's sacrifice, do you think you'd even be the VP of Muhua Group? Saw right through me, huh? Ha. Ha 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 ha. Wang Chao laughed hysterically. Yeah, you were right. I'm twisted. But after today, Muhan and Muhua Group will all be mine. Mine. His face turned hard, and he pointed at Yang Ling. This is all your fault. You showed up and forced me to take risks. Just because you wanted to get your hands on Muhan. What are you, some kind of stud? I want you dead. I want your whole family dead. I heard you have a sister. And an ex-girlfriend? I'm gonna find them and kill them while they're in bed. Show you what it's like to lose your woman. Yang Ling stared at him, unimpressed. Are you done with your little speech? Huh. Everyone looked at Yang Ling, confused. But Yang Ling was already moving with lightning speed. Ding! Throwing mastery skill activated, he flicked his wrist, and 4 coins shot toward the armed robbers. With 18 points of strength behind them, the coins packed a serious punch. And at the same time, he was charging forward. Ding! Lingbo microstep skill activated. With the skill's boost, Yang Ling's speed was beyond human. Chapter 63 Instant Kill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just like that, almost at the same time as Yang Ling moved, all 4 coins found their mark. The gunman got beamed by a coin, his grip went slack, and the weapon clattered to the floor. Right then, Yang Ling's fist connected with Wang Chao's face. Thwack! Wang Chao went down hard, his face a bloody mess, knocked out cold before he could even yelp. If Yang Ling wasn't holding back, the guy would be pushing up daisies. With Wang Chao out of the picture, Yang Ling kept moving, taking down the rest of the kidnappers before they knew what hit them. Total wipeout. In mere seconds, the cocky kidnappers were all sprawled on the ground. Silence. Dead silence. Old man Lu stared at Yang Ling, speechless. The young man, with his cool demeanor and icy gaze, seemed like a godsend at that moment. Lu Muhan covered her mouth, tears welling up, maybe from fear, maybe from shock, or maybe from the sudden rush of relief. Ding! You have fulfilled the wishes of Mr. Lu and Lu Muhan. Wish value +1. Current progress /10. Ding! You squashed the robbers' desires. Attribute point +1. Ignoring them, Yang Ling planted his foot on Wang Chao's thigh. The searing pain jolted the man awake. Mr. Wang, what was that you were saying earlier? Run it by me again. Wang Chao screamed, writhing in agony, realizing his lower body was a mangled mess, unsure if it was still attached. Yang Ling, you son of a... Arg! Before he could finish, Yang Ling stomped down, shattering his shin bone. I'm a fair guy, Yang Ling said, his voice like ice. You were badmouthing my sister and ex, so I'm breaking both your legs. He punctuated the statement with another stomp, snapping Wang Chao's other leg. Wang Chao's blood-curdling howls echoed through the villa. Lu Muhan winced. Yang Ling, that's enough. Let the police handle it. Yang Ling shot her a cool glance. Ms. Lu, this guy was about to kill you. Being soft on your enemies is just being cruel to yourself. Haven't you figured that out yet? It was a reprimand, but his voice, though firm, wasn't enraged. Lu Muhan's heart skipped a beat. What man besides her family would dare speak to her like that? But meeting Yang Ling's gaze, she couldn't hold it. Feeling a strange mix of emotions, she lowered her head and fell silent. Ding! You crushed Lu Muhan's soft-hearted plea for mercy. Attribute point +1. Yang Ling had just given a dressing down to a powerful CEO, and despite his stony expression, he was secretly pleased with himself. Not just anyone could scold a female CEO. He turned his attention back to Wang Chao. Tell me, how do you undo the contraption on Madam? That the guy seemed to know he was a goner, but he was still spitting venom. Yang Ling, on the verge of stomping on his arm, was interrupted by the wail of sirens outside the villa. He frowned, pulled back his foot, and glanced toward the entrance. Su Qiuxia burst in with a squad of officers, but the scene that greeted her left her stunned. The masked kidnappers lay unconscious on the floor, and in the center of the room, Xia Fian was tangled in wires. Across the room, Mr. Lu and Chairman Lu were staring at him. And there was Yang Ling. Almost without thinking, Su Qiuxia blurted out, "Yang Ling, what the heck is going on?" Chapter 64, The Sudden Change, the Countdown to the Explosion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Remember that time? Yang Ling grinned, someone got kidnapped. But I handled it for you. So, how are you gonna thank me this time? Su Qiuxia was floored. She couldn't believe that when she tracked Cyclonus's suspicious van, she'd stumbled upon the kidnapping, and that the mastermind was Xia Fian, Lu's wife. These guys had guns. No matter how capable Yang Ling was, he couldn't have pulled this off alone. She figured it had to be Lu's security detail. Those guys were top-notch, like ninjas. She frowned, "Yang Ling, knock it off. Get behind me." Then, turning to Mr. Lu with a slight bow, she said, "Sir, Yang Ling doesn't know the ropes, please excuse him. This is our jurisdiction. Since you're here in person, we'll take it from here." Mr. Lu smiled wearily. "Su, you're mistaken. Yang Ling really did take care of these guys himself. Actually, I gave my security detail the day off for personal matters." Everyone was stunned. When Lu Muhan gave a subtle nod, Su Qiuxia gaped at Yang Ling. Last time, Yang Ling caught the serial robbers, a huge win for her, and now he'd cracked the Lu's kidnapping. He was on a roll. The kicker was, since he hadn't quit yet, all the credit would go to her. She looked at Yang Ling, flustered, and after a long pause, blushed slightly and said, "You did a good job. I'll treat you to dinner next time." Yang Ling had never seen her like this. Usually, she was all over him. Seeing her discomfort, he stepped closer, smirking, and whispered in her ear, "Just dinner. Sounds like a date." Before he could finish, he felt a sharp pain in his foot. She'd stomped on him. Su Qiuxia glared at him, telling him to shut it, but the glare wasn't angry, more like a mix of resentment and, was that shyness? Ding! You crushed Su Qiuxia's desire to invite you to dinner. Attribute point +1. Yang Ling smiled inwardly. Teasing the beautiful boss had paid off with an attribute point. Sweet, but he knew this wasn't the time for jokes. He turned serious. "Boss, Madam has an induction electromagnetic bomb strapped to her, could go off any minute." Su Qiuxia had figured that out. She nodded. "Everyone, take the kidnappers and clear the area immediately. And call the bomb squad." Everyone sprang into action. Su Qiuxia said to Mr. Lu, "Sir, Miss Lu, you both need to leave." Mr. Lu glanced at his daughter-in-law and nodded, but Lu Muhan looked at Su Qiuxia, then at Yang Ling, and huffed, "I want to stay here with my mother." Everyone was dumbfounded. Where was this coming from? Just then, an electronic voice chimed, and the electromagnetic bomb on Xia Fian's body began counting down, 10 minutes. No bomb disposal expert could get here in 10 minutes. In other words, Madam was basically a goner. Wang Chao's cackle echoed through the hall, "Yang Ling, I gotta admit, you're good. You beat me today. But I custom designed this bomb. Aside from me, there are very few people in the world who can disarm it." He looked beaten, but he was still ridiculously cocky. Chapter 65. Let me come. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hold on a second, he abruptly turned to Lu Muhan. Muhan, remember when you said Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata was your favorite? See that piano? It's my last gift to you. I know you've been playing piano since you were a kid. The bomb only disarms if you play the entire Moonlight Sonata perfectly. One wrong note, and you and Xia Fian both die. What? A collective gasp filled the room as everyone stared at the piano. Wires were clearly visible, snaking away from it. The bomb was triggered and disarmed by the piano's music. Every eye was now on Lu Muhan, play it right, and her mother is saved, play it wrong, and they both die. A life or death choice. Of course, she could turn and run, the safest option, but she'd live with the guilt for the rest of her life. Xia Fian shook her head frantically, silently begging her daughter to leave. Lu Muhan trembled. She looked at her mother, then at her grandfather. After a long silence, she slowly walked toward the piano. Ha ha ha, Lu Muhan, you're dead. You're so dead. Who told you to ignore me? Who told you to marry someone else? You and your mother are going to die here together. Wang Chao's insane laughter echoed through the hall. Su Qiuxia snapped to attention. In this crisis, she knew she couldn't decide for the Lu family. Seeing Lu Muhan's resolve, she announced, "Everyone, evacuate the villa." The police officers silently escorted the captured robber toward the door. Mr. Lu shook his head slightly, indicating he wouldn't leave. Su Qiuxia just smiled sadly. Mr. Lu sighed softly, "Shaoling, thank you for today. Go with Captain Su. If something happens to us, you're entitled to inherit half of Muhua Group's property." Yang Ling and Lu Muhan were married, so he did have a claim, but he only smiled slightly, didn't respond, and kept his eyes fixed on Lu Muhan at the piano. The glamorous woman stood there, still trembling. Her face was pale, and her eyes were misty. Death is scary for everyone. Lu Muhan took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She'd played the Moonlight Sonata hundreds of times, it should be second nature, but now, she was shaking uncontrollably, unable to focus, and time was running out. "Mom, I don't have a father. I can't lose you, too. If you die, I'm going with you." Gently, she placed her slender fingers on the keys and slowly closed her eyes. 2 tears escaped and rolled down her cheeks, but just as she was about to play the first note, strong, warm hands gripped her shoulders, pulling her back from the brink. Lu Muhan turned to see a handsome face, wearing a faint smile. Yang Ling. It was Yang Ling stopping her. Yang Ling smiled and said, "Let me handle this." Just a few words, but they resonated deeply within Lu Muhan's heart. She looked at the man before her, tears streaming down her face. Beyond the warmth, she felt an irresistible confidence and strength emanating from his touch. Her tears were uncontrollable now, but Yang Ling gently lifted her up and steered her into Su Qiuxia's arms. "Captain Su, get everyone out of here. I'll take care of this." Chapter 66 Mastery of Musical Instruments. Wonderful Moonlight Song. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But you. Su Qiuxia started to say something, but Yang Ling cut her off, shaking his head. "I'm running out of time. Trust me." His words hit Su Qiuxia hard. He was right. The young man in front of her had surprised her too many times. He was a guy who consistently pulled through the most desperate situations, a man radiating a mysterious confidence. He was someone she trusted implicitly. She nodded firmly. "Be careful." Then, she ordered, "Get Mr. Lu out of the villa, now." Before Mr. Lu could protest, the 2 officers hoisted him up and hustled him out. As he was leaving, the old man looked at Yang Ling, a deep plea in his eyes. "Kid, survive." Wang Chao screamed, "Yang Ling, you're asking for it. You're asking for death." Lu Muhan was in tears. She gazed at Yang Ling, her eyes filled with 1,000 unspoken words. Suddenly, only Yang Ling and Xia Fian remained in the hall. Yang Ling looked at the crying woman and smiled faintly. "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Xia Fian stared blankly at the composed young man. She'd been away on a business trip and didn't know the extent of the relationship between Yang Ling and Lu Muhan. All she could do was nod numbly. She understood that her life was now irrevocably linked to this young man's. Taking a deep breath, Yang Ling's lips curved into a smile, and he slowly pressed a key on the piano. Ding, musical instrument proficiency activated. That's right, his biggest advantage to dare to replace Lu Muhan was his musical instrument proficiency. Plus, he had spent considerable time reading books, even works by Beethoven. He knew the sheet music for Moonlight Sonata like the back of his hand. His fingers touched the keys, and a gentle, delicate piano melody began to fill the air. Beethoven wrote the Moonlight Sonata after experiencing heartbreak. The tune is beautiful and soft, creating a feeling of floating in a boat. Drifting on a moonlit lake, Yang Ling's musical instrument proficiency gave him the best piano-playing skills on the planet. Frankly, even Beethoven himself, reincarnated, might not be as good as him. The beautiful melody flowed like a lake, and everyone waiting anxiously outside the villa stood transfixed. Beneath Wang Chao's twisted face, disbelief was visible. How is this possible? Why is he playing the piano? And why is he playing it so well? That before he could say another word, a rag was stuffed into his mouth. Su Qiuxia's eyes narrowed. The gentle melody calmed her nerves. She closed her eyes and listened quietly to the artistic masterpiece. Everyone around seemed to be similarly affected, looking peaceful, listening with closed eyes. Mr. Lu sighed in relief and looked at his granddaughter beside him, but was slightly surprised. Lu Muhan's eyes were tightly closed, and tears streamed down her face, but her lips were softly humming the notes, as if she were playing Moonlight Sonata along with Yang Ling. Mr. Lu looked up at the sky, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. The people outside the villa were lost in the music, and Xia Fian, watching Yang Ling play, was even more enthralled. She stared at Yang Ling, her heart racing in time with the movements of his fingers. Feelings that had been buried for years, in this moment of life and death, surfaced like moonlight on the lake, gently rippling. Time seemed to stop, or perhaps an eternity passed. When the piano fell silent, they remained captivated, still lost in the beauty of the music. Chapter 67. Why is it like flirting? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, so after a sec, by the time Su Qiuxia bolted into the villa, Yang Ling had already disarmed the bomb and was walking out with Xia Fian. Mom. Lu Muhan, not caring about anything else, rushed over and hugged the pale Xia Fian. Ding, you fulfilled Xia Fian's wish to be rescued, wish value +1. Ding, you fulfilled Lu Muhan's wish that you and Xia Fian escaped safely, wish value +1. Ding, you satisfied. A string of system notifications chimed, and Yang Ling gained 5 wish points and 1 attribute point in one shot. Totally worth it, Su Qiuxia sighed in relief. Looking at Yang Ling, she said seriously, you're the most impressive guy I've ever met. Oh. Yang Ling grinned. Captain, if you let that slip, I'm afraid I'll have your admirers coming after me. And you're scared of a little roughhousing. The words hung in the air, and Yang Ling was speechless. Su Qiuxia herself was taken aback, then blushed. Did that just sound like flirting? Seeing Yang Ling's slight blush, the policewoman couldn't help but burst out laughing, her smile as radiant as a lily in bloom. Yang Ling was a little stunned. Ahem. Mr. Lu cleared his throat, pulling Yang Ling to his side. Captain Su, I want to thank your team this time. Have Xiao Song call me. I'll fill him in on the details. Su Qiuxia paused, picking up on the old man's hint. Was he trying to get them to leave? She looked at old man Lu, surprised, then at Yang Ling and Lu Muhan nearby, and seemed to understand. Her brow furrowed slightly, but with the old man having spoken, she could only nod. Okay, I'll file the report when I get back. Yang Ling, let's go. Come back to the station with me. Sure. Before Yang Ling could finish, the old man chuckled, Xiao Ling is our hero. I need to thank him properly, so he won't be going back with you. As he spoke, the old man's eyes flickered ever so slightly. A man of integrity his whole life, but he was tugging at Yang Ling for his granddaughter's happiness. Su Qiuxia didn't press it. She gave Yang Ling a meaningful look and said, call me later, I need to ask you something. Okay. Yang Ling could only agree with a wry smile. Ding, you fulfilled Su Qiuxia's wish value +1, current progress January 10th. Sometimes, all it takes to make a girl happy is a simple yes. Exhibit A, right here, the police officers loaded the robbers into the police van, Wang Chao having to be carried on a stretcher, his legs pulverized by Yang Ling. As he was wheeled past, he glared at Yang Ling, snarling, "Don't get too cocky. If I don't die, I'll get you one day. Wipe out your whole family." Yang Ling looked at him indifferently. "Lots of people want to deal with me. I don't see anything special about you. Besides, I doubt we'll see each other again." Wang Chao's hatred ran deep. He shot one last look at Lu Muhan, then back at Yang Ling, his eyes full of unspoken meaning. "You ruined our plans. Even if I'm locked up, there are people on the outside who will deal with you." Chapter 68 Earned a Helicopter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, hang on a sec. Mess with a snake, you might not kill it, but you're gonna get bit. Yang Ling's eyes turned colder. If this guy wants to wipe out my whole family, then I'm taking him out first. Ding, deduction proficiency activated. Yang Ling's eyes flashed. Just as they were about to load the guy into the squad car, a coin appeared out of nowhere. It bounced along the ground in a sneaky path and just happened to smack a cop right on the back of the knee. The cop stumbled, and the stretcher flipped over. Wang Chao, helpless as he was, landed flat on his back, right on top of a jagged rock. Thunk, the rock speared straight through Wang Chao's throat, and blood gushed everywhere. He clawed at his neck, managed to turn his head toward the stone-cold Yang Ling, then at the coin that had rolled away. Hatred faded from his eyes as he breathed his last. The scene was a mess, but Yang Ling just smirked. The police car roared off with Wang Chao and the kidnappers. Yang Ling knew Wang Chao was a goner. It was the first time he'd killed someone, but he felt nothing. With all the power-ups he'd been getting, Yang Ling's whole outlook had changed. To him, Wang Chao was just an ant, but before he died, the guy said there were others after him. Sounded like accomplices. Something to watch out for. After a bit, two fancy cars pulled up to the Lu family. The old man chuckled, "Xiao Ling, let's go, time to head home." Yang Ling grinned, walked over to the thing covered in the tarp, and ripped it off, revealing what was underneath. Sure enough, a helicopter. He smiled and said, "Team Su and the others skipped out in such a hurry, this thing counts as abandoned property now. I'll fly it back to the station." Mr. Lu blinked, then laughed. "Forget that. This helicopter belongs to the company. Since you can fly it, I'm giving it to you." "What?" Yang Ling was stunned, then he said, surprised, "Grandpa, this is a brand new Bell 505. It costs like $10 million. Mr. Lu laughed. "You're Mu Han's husband, my grandson-in-law. What's a helicopter? Besides, it's rare you can fly one. I'd be upset if you didn't take it." Yang Ling grinned. "In that case, I'll take you up on that offer, Grandpa." Ding. Accepted the helicopter and fulfilled Mr. Lu's wish. Wish value +1. Current progress, October 14th. The system's announcement caught Yang Ling off guard. He'd gotten a free helicopter, plus a wish value bonus. What was that all about? Grandpa Lu was in great spirits. He clapped Yang Ling on the shoulder and said, "From now on, just call me Grandpa like Mu Han does." He completely welcomed him into the family. Yang Ling didn't hesitate. "Okay, Grandpa." Ding. You have fulfilled Mr. Lu's wish. Current progress, 15 out of 10. The old man grinned even wider and called out, "Fian, Mu Han, come thank Xiao Ling." They were doing much better now. Xia Fian glanced at Yang Ling, blushing a little. She was older and wiser, though, so she said softly, "Xiao Ling, thank you." Yang Ling smiled and nodded. "You're very welcome, madam." Then he looked at Lu Muhan. The CEO wasn't crying now, but her face was all flushed. She wanted to say something, but just blushed and couldn't find the words. Chapter 69 I'm sorry, and thank you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Remember for a second, I used to hate Yang Ling's guts. But without him, Mom, Grandpa, and I would be. Yang Ling must have seen the thought cross my face because he stepped closer and whispered in my ear, if you can't say it now, you can tell me tonight when we're alone. What? His implication hit me like a ton of bricks. My face went crimson. I stomped my foot and mumbled, dream on. That's not happening. But then I caught Yang Ling's faint smile. He was helping me out of an awkward spot. That little. Even though I was blushing and acting mad, a tiny smile crept onto my face. As I walked past Yang Ling, I quietly said, I'm sorry, and thanks. Just like that, the female CEO was back. I turned to the employees who were coming over and said, take the car with the cash back. We're heading back to the office. With that, I hopped into the Rolls-Royce like I owned it. Ding! Lu Muhan's favorability towards you has increased by 100. Current favorability, 0. A few minutes later, once his daughter-in-law and granddaughter were in the car, Mr. Lu clapped Yang Ling on the shoulder and said, this helicopter's got all the permits. If you get a pilot's license, I'll help you sign up. I'll have all the helicopter paperwork sent over to you. Don't sweat it. And tonight, be home for dinner. We're going to thank you properly. After Yang Ling nodded, he grinned, waved, and hopped in the car. They took off. As the fancy cars disappeared into the distance, Yang Ling smiled and climbed into the helicopter. Ding! Master driver activated. The helicopter smoothly took off, heading straight towards Tianqing Garden. For his first flight, Yang Ling didn't show off. He just flew. His mind, however, was elsewhere. System, he thought, I want to make a wish. I want to be able to sense danger ahead of time. Ding! Everything in the universe has its destiny. The host cannot see the future. The system can only grant you heightened awareness. Yang Ling gave a wry smile. He knew he couldn't see the future. But heightened awareness wasn't a bad consolation prize. He nodded. Okay, do it. Ding! Wish granted. Host receives the skill, Area Awareness. Area Awareness, passive skill. The host can sense danger within a 1 kilometer radius. Ding! The host gains 1 charm point. Not bad. Yang Ling grinned and added the 4 free attribute points he'd earned to his mental power. His stats changed again: strength, 18. Agility, 20. Stamina, 15. Mental power, 16. Charm, 5. Wish value, 5 out of 10. Just as he finished, his phone rang. It was Chu Xin. Yang Ling, where are you? Yang Ling was taken aback. Then he chuckled and said, I'm in the sky. The sky? He heard a giggle on the other end of the line. Are you head over heels? Alright, I'm not kidding around. Last night's live stream was great. I need to talk to you about something. Meet me at Starbucks in Wanya Plaza. Was he really head over heels? Yang Ling rubbed his nose. Can't you just tell me over the phone? Before he could finish, Chu Xin hung up. He smiled wryly and glanced at the time. Might as well. He changed direction and headed towards Wanya Plaza. Chapter 70 It turns out to be a stinky dick. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By sheer coincidence, this Wanya Plaza happened to be owned by the Lu family. There was an open football field nearby. Since no one was using it, Yang Ling simply landed the helicopter there. The stadium staff didn't dare question it, seeing it was one of their company's own helicopters. Soon, Yang Ling arrived at the main entrance of Wanya Plaza and spotted Chu Xin, who seemed to be in an argument. A young guy in a suit and glasses was saying to her with a smirk, Xin, the contract is crystal clear. You signed a 5-year deal with the company, and you'll regret backing out. Chu Xin scoffed. My parents signed it, not me. Take it up with them. A flashy woman in sunglasses standing next to him sneered, Oh, you want us to talk to them? Where are we going to find them? They're in Canada now. Don't you want to be a star? What are you trying to pull after signing the contract? The boss is interested in you. What are you going to refuse? Chu Xin glared at the woman. I do want to be a star, but not the kind who has to drink and sleep around like you. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. I'm not going to sell myself for the fake promise of being a star, even a D-list one. The woman was furious, but the guy asked, so you're not interested? 5 million in damages. If you can't pay, don't blame us for getting rough. As soon as he said that, 2 hulking guys jumped out of a van behind him. It was the middle of the afternoon, but the square was deserted. The few bystanders quickly scattered when they saw what was happening. Chu Xin's face went white, and she backed away. The guy sneered. The boss wants to meet you. Get her in the car. The 2 goons rushed at Chu Xin, but just then, 2 rocks came flying out of nowhere, hitting them square on. A casually dressed young man was walking toward them. Chu Xin exclaimed in surprise, Yang Ling. Ding! You have fulfilled Chu Xin's wish to be rescued. Wish value +1. Current progress, June 10th. Yang Ling nodded slightly. As he got closer, he casually glanced at the group and said, in broad daylight. This is pretty bold, don't you think? The guy and the woman sized Yang Ling up and down, then sneered. The woman said, looks like we have a nobody here. But out and go away. Yang Ling didn't get angry. He said calmly, if I'm not mistaken, aren't you Gopailan, the so-called famous actress from Orange Heart Entertainment? And isn't that Qin Hongba, your manager, standing next to you? Sorry, Xin has an appointment with me. You'll have to come back later. Qin Hongba scoffed, a loser who can't even afford a car is chasing after girls. Chu Xin is under contract with our company. This is none of your business. Scram while you still can. Yang Ling smirked. An artist with your company? Last I checked, a contract isn't valid unless it's signed in person. I just heard Xin say her parents signed the contract. So how exactly is she with your company? The 2 were furious, because what Yang Ling said was spot on. Standing behind Yang Ling, Chu Xin felt a surge of security. Ding! You refuted Gopailan and Qin Hongba's nonsense. Attribute point +1.